So in this video, I'm going to be revealing the entire blueprint of how to go from scratch to a multi-million dollar business acquisition without putting in any of your own money. Okay, but you need to still pay your bills. You may need to put some money to form an entity, but to execute the deal itself, to buy a multi-million dollar business, you don't have to necessarily put your own money. So that's what I will be talking to you about. And a little bit of an introduction of myself. My name is Prithvi and I'm the founder of a healthcare investment company which is based in UAE. And in the last 3 years, I have put myself in a position of negotiating a $3.5 million deal. It was a healthcare cosmetic clinic, a $10 million deal, which is something I negotiated with a home care company, a $25 million negotiation that I did with a optical clinic, and $120 and $140 million transaction that I negotiated with $1 billion public company who wanted to sell their assets. So I have been in those positions. I've negotiated with the decision makers. I've also negotiated with multi-billion dollar law firms, multi-billion dollar accounting firms, and I'm talking about negotiating with senior partners of these firms. Not only that, I have also managed to secure a team that has an experience of 200 plus years of experience combined with over 7 different people. The team has over 200 plus years of experience, and this team that I have put together, my team of advisors, they have done work on multi-billion dollar deals. To give you a perspective, my chairman, who is also my business partner, he was a former CEO of a $3.5 billion company. And I'm also in a business partnership with a lawyer, managing partner of a top law firm who advised on a $13 billion bank merger. Okay, I'm just creating some background so that you can understand where I'm coming from. I'm in a business partnership with 2 healthcare CEOs that ran very big healthcare companies in UAE. And they both have 30 years of experience each. And I've got one individual who is extremely proficient in accounting. He was in, again, one of the biggest accounting firms in the world. He was a senior partner, and he advises billion-dollar groups on accounting matters. And I also brought together a financial professional from one of these big firms who was also a CFO of a $400 million company. So just establishing some credibility here before we get into the subject. Now I will talk about how this whole thing works and how did I get in this position at the age of 29, and I started at the age of 26, and I do not have a college degree. I went it straight into business. I dropped out of college. And I have been at entrepreneurship since I was 17. So that was my first business. I had several failed businesses. Until then, I had some success. And then I finally met my mentor, Dan Pena. And, everything changed from that point on. And what I have done so far came out of his training, his experience, and what he shared with me. And then I went out and I executed it in UAE. So, and I did it with very little money of my own. I was paying for my expenses, but apart from that, I didn't put a lot of money into the company. And I come from very humble beginnings. I was born in India, raised by a single mother, and I moved to UAE where I had no contacts at all, and I did this. Okay, and it was just using my laptop and my phone from my bedroom, if I have to be completely transparent here. So I did that, and so can you. And I'm going to reveal the entire blueprint of all the steps that I took to do this. So step number one is you gotta pick a region, a country where you are going to do this. Either one country or several countries. It's better to start with one country. So the best countries to do this is, number one is United States of America. You've got UK, which works really well. Then you've got Germany, you've got Switzerland, you've got Canada, you've got Netherlands, you've got South Africa, you've got Australia. These are the places which have seen a lot of success stories. You have also got Brazil, that was recommended to me, and you have all of these regions where this can work. It's a little bit tough to do it in India, and it's also a little bit tough to do it in the Gulf region where I am based, but it's definitely possible. But the countries that I mentioned before this are the ones which have the right ecosystem, financial ecosystem, the types of businesses that are available to be acquired. It's incredible what's available in these markets. And I know personally individuals who have bought several multi-million-dollar businesses in these regions, and this is the reason I'm recommending this to you. So first step is to identify a region which has a lot of businesses, and it has good banking infrastructure, and it has a lot of banks that can finance deals. Businesses in most places are generally available, so I'm not too concerned about that, but the main thing is the banking ecosystem has to be strong. So in America, you've got a couple of hundred banks. In UK, you have a couple of hundred banks. And similarly, in all of these regions, you have a lot of banks and a lot of financing available. So first step is the region. The second step is the industry that you want to get into. So here are the 4 factors that you need to account for when choosing an industry to buy several multi-million-dollar businesses. So we are talking about buying businesses here. We are not talking about creating a business from scratch. We are talking about raising money from the banks and acquiring a multi-million-dollar business without using your own money. That's what we are talking about for those of you who don't understand. And you buy several businesses, you combine them together, several multi-million-dollar businesses, and then you sell it for the double price. Okay, you flip it at a higher price and you make a whole bunch of money. So that's the whole business model in a nutshell. So to do that, you got to first pick the region. Second thing is you got to pick the industry you want to get into, and the industry has to be big. Ideally, you want the industry to have trillions of dollars in it globally, and you want to have high profit margins. So big industry, high profit margin. You want the industry to be stable. Okay, so it cannot be an industry that can get wiped out, for example, because of COVID. You want an industry that's very stable through macroeconomic downturns. Okay, anything happens to the economy, nothing will happen to this industry. So you want stable industries, and you want high volume of sellers who are above 60 years old. Okay, so the one industry that comes to my mind is healthcare. But there are several other industries. You've got crematoriums, you've got healthcare I mentioned. Within healthcare, you've got dental, cosmetic, home care, medical billing, daycare surgery, cosmetic clinic, assisted living. All of this is under healthcare. So it's a pretty big industry, and I always recommend to my clients to go into healthcare. It's one of the easiest to buy businesses in. So you've got the industry, you choose these, you consider these 4 or 5 factors that I just mentioned. Big size, high volume of businesses. So you want at least a couple of thousand businesses that are there in your market, and you want these businesses to be fragmented, meaning they cannot be owned by one major group. So if you look at a social media company, we think about Facebook, Instagram, and you don't want a space which is dominated. So you want a space which is fragmented, meaning many private companies control that entire industry, not one major player. Okay, and all you got to do is acquire several of these small private companies and become a major player and exit. So you got to make sure that these factors are considered before you choose an industry. So you picked a region, you choose an industry. Then the next step is you got to create a vision. You know, what do you want to do? What do you want to do within this industry? You know, which sector, which niche you want to get into. Do you want to get into dental, cosmetic, home care? What sector you want to get into? And how many businesses you want to acquire? You know, 4, 5, 10, 20, you got to define that. And you know, what is the price that you would be buying these businesses on? You know, the price of the business, how you are going to value the business is going to be based on whatever they're making at the end of the year. You will multiply that by, you know, 3 or 4 times. So you will buy at an X price and you will sell it at an X price. So you got to define your entry point and exit point. And this has to be based on data. So you got to clarify the vision. You got to create a vision statement. You got to create a nice profile. You need a market study. And then you go and you build a team of advisors. So, you know, I'm 29 years old. I didn't have any experience when I started out. So obviously a project of this magnitude will need individuals and mentors who have done this before. You know, mentors who have experience in doing what you want to do. So, you know, my team, as I mentioned, have 200 plus years of experience, and I built this team as a very strategic step before I looked for financing or a multi-million-dollar business to buy. So building a team is very essential. So you want few industry experts, you want someone from finance background, someone from accounting background, and finance and accounting are 2 different subjects. You want someone from law background who has bought businesses before, and you need a powerful individual who has a strong name in the market. And typically, as a general guideline, you will have these individuals on your team who will be advising you on their respective subject of expertise. And once you have built the team, then you will be ready to extend this team and get yourself a law firm to represent you and an accounting firm to represent you. Why do you need a law firm and an accounting firm? Because before you buy a business, you want to make sure that the business is legitimate, the financial information is accurate, and you have done a quality of earnings report through these firms, and the law firms will do your paperwork and will also investigate whether the business is in compliance with the law. So you will need to do due diligence before you acquire any asset with top law firms and top accounting firms. So you need them again as an essential step before you start looking for acquisitions. Once you have done that, well, you need to start doing presentations with the banks, and you need to start building relationships with them. And you know, so I spoke with over probably around 100 to 200 bankers at the beginning to establish some relationships with them at different levels. So you've got the small divisions, mid divisions, large divisions, and within these divisions there are decision makers. I went through an interview process with them to understand their lending criterias. You know, what parameters do they lend on? What sector do they lend on? How do they want me to structure the deals? Have they done a deal before in the healthcare, etc., etc.? Is it a problem if it's a new company? And those kind of questions. So you get all the information from them, what types of deals they will finance and what types of deals they will not finance. And then you will start making some calls with the sellers and finding a multi-million-dollar business. And this is the time when I was making a lot of phone calls. I found all of these opportunities, right? And while I was building the team also, I met a lot of people and I built my contact base in a new city. And by the time I got to finding sellers who want to sell their multi-million-dollar business, I had a pretty strong network, and I was in a completely different position when I was starting out. You sit down with them, you get information from them, you analyze the information with your team of advisors, you validate the information with the accountants and lawyers, you negotiate, you agree on a purchase price. Some of it you pay upfront, some of it you pay over time in installments, and this down payment you get it from a bank, and you acquire only profitable businesses so that the cash flow from the business can cover the debt service, and nothing has to come from your pocket, and you can just pay this down payment to the seller, and you raise this down payment from the bank, and you acquire the business. And the minimum business that I recommend to acquire would be at least $1 million business. Now, you may be a little bit freaked out by the idea of acquiring $1 million business, but just take a walk and see any bar or restaurant that you see which is a decent size will be $1 million business. Okay, generally $1 million business looks like this. Or if you go to a dental clinic with a few doctors, can also be $1 million business. So it's not a big business, it's a very small business with less than maybe 15-20 employees, and it's a small business. So you buy one business, then you buy another, then you buy another, and then you buy another. So the growth of the portfolio looks like this. $1 million deal, then you did a $2 million deal, so it's $3 million portfolio, then you did a $5 million deal, it's $8 million, then you did another $5 million, that's $13 million, and so on. So, and it takes about 6 to 8 months, between 6 to 8 months to do your first acquisition. So you can keep buying companies and grow very rapidly. And eventually, at some point, assuming you've done all the steps, you have acquired the right businesses, you're managing them well, someone from your team is managing the business well, you have everything set up, and your company is doing well, you will be a candidate for an acquisition for someone else. So somewhere along the lines, when you're acquiring these companies, a bigger player will come and acquire your group and will give you a whole bunch of money, and you can exit. So this is a scenario that happens all the time in the world, and this is how the whole process works, from the beginning to doing your first deal, to doing several deals, to exiting and making a whole bunch of money. So this takes roughly around 5 years to 7 years. Sometimes it can take 9 years to exit. Sometimes you can exit in 3 years. Some people can exit in 2 years. It really depends on how focused you are, how disciplined you are, how many sacrifices you make, how well you follow the steps, and most importantly, who is mentoring you. So if this is something that you want to learn, I have a mentorship program where I train you one-on-one on executing this whole business model. And the way the mentorship is structured is that I do one session with you where I go through the step number 1, and then you got to go out and you got to execute that step. And until you have executed that step, I do not set up meeting. I do not set up the session number 2. Only once you have finished the session 1, we do session number 2. Then you go out and you finish everything from session number 2. Then we do session number 3, and so on. So the mentorship can take place between 3 to 6 months. Sometimes it can go up until 9 months. So I make sure that I take you by the hand through all the steps. I help you identify a region, pick an industry, build your team, get the accountants and lawyers, help you interview banks and locate the right decision makers in the banks, how to find multi-million-dollar businesses, how to negotiate with them, how to structure the deal right, how to present the deal to your advisors. All of this with putting little or no money of your own. Okay? So just think about that. And then how do you actually close the deal and you know, transfer the ownership, etc. How do you conduct your first board meeting, and how do you retain major equity position in your company, because that's important. You would be the one who would be executing this. You would be the one who would be exposed, making all the phone calls and doing all the work. You got to make sure that you have majority stake, and your advisors will also receive some shares in your company. That's how they will get compensated. So you do not have to pay them a salary. They will be your business partners, and they will receive you know, money for the shares that you give them when you exit the company. Okay, so I train you from the very beginning to the end, and I don't move forward until you have executed the step. So the mentorship is really designed around you and your progress. You know, it's designed with keeping you in mind and your needs in mind. So if that's you, I only work with serious entrepreneurs, and you know, you reach out to me. I will give you a form to fill, and based on this form, I will assess whether you are the right candidate or not, whether this is for you or not. Because this opportunity is not for everybody. It's only for some people who want to make a serious change in their career, who want to build wealth, who want to learn how to do this model, and I help you position yourself to execute this. So if that's you, if you want to learn this, reach out to me, email me. I'm going to leave my email down in the link. Click on that email, send me an email referring to this video, and once you fill the form, we will do a free consultation call, assuming you qualify. Okay, once you qualify, we will do the free consultation call, and I will address any questions that you may have on the free consultation call. I will explain to you how everything will work, and from there we will either move forward or not. Okay, so that's in essence the whole process, and so reach out to me and we will talk what can be possible between us. I'll talk to you soon.